These gooey brown butter, chocolate chip, and chocolate chunk cookies are exactly what you need this holiday season. Basically, everyone I know here loves these cookies and they never even realize that they're gluten-free. You can also use all-purpose flour here, and I'll include any notes in the description box below that would be relevant to using regular all-purpose flour. To get started, we will first make the brown butter. To do this, we'll melt the butter in a medium-sized pot or pan over medium heat. This pot I used was probably a little bit too small for this, but you live and learn. Once the butter is mostly melted, you'll want to stir it the entire time you're browning it to keep it moving. You know it's done when the butter is golden brown and the milk solids at the bottom of the pan have become toasty brown but not burnt or black. The butter will also start to smell very rich and nutty. Immediately remove this from the heat to stop the cooking process and pour it into a large heat-safe bowl. You want to set the butter aside to cool and start to harden again. You can do this over an ice bath in the fridge or freezer, or you can place it outside in the snow for about 15 minutes like I did. But you'll want to stir the butter every 5 minutes or so because we want it to cool evenly. Meanwhile, we will prepare the chocolate. I'm using a full 14 ounces of dark chocolate here. I have a combination of 65%, 75%, and 87% dark chocolate and dark chocolate chips. We're going to first chop the chocolate into various sizes. Small pieces and tiny shards are great because they'll melt into the cookies and provide a nice texture, but some large chunks are nice because they create those pools of chocolate that are so enticing. Next, we will combine the dry ingredients. In a medium bowl, combine the gluten-free flour, baking soda, baking powder, and fine salt. I'm using Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 gluten-free flour. I have not tested this with any other gluten-free flours, but I do recommend that you use one that is meant to be an all-purpose flour replacement that does have xanthan gum in it. Stir the dry ingredients together to combine. Then we're gonna stir in the majority of the chocolate chips and chopped chocolate, reserving some of the larger pieces for topping the cookies later. We mix the chocolate in here in order to coat the chocolate pieces in the flour, which does help them to mix more evenly in the dough later on. When the brown butter has cooled to become semi-solid rather than fully liquid, stir it well and then add the white sugar, brown sugar, and nutmeg. I'm just gonna grate the nutmeg directly in here, but you need about 1/8 of a teaspoon. This is another sort of chocolate chip cookie hack that really adds this amazing aroma and flavor to the cookies. Stir the butter, sugar, and nutmeg to combine, then whip it together on relatively high speed with a hand mixer or a stand mixer until it's nice and fluffy. This will take you 5 to 6 minutes or maybe even a little bit longer. You want to cream the butter together with the sugar as well as you can so the sugar can fully dissolve into the butter. Next, we're gonna add the vanilla and then add 1 egg and whip just until combined, then add the next egg and whip just until combined. Then we're going to add the flour and chocolate mixture, adding about 1/3 of it at a time. You can't really overmix these cookies because there's no gluten to develop, so it's okay if you have to mix it a lot to get everything to combine well. Once your dough is done and looking absolutely gorgeous, we want to chill it for as long as possible. We want this in the fridge for a few hours at a minimum, but overnight or even a couple of days in the freezer is ideal. I do recommend forming the cookies and placing them on a baking tray first. I use a trigger release ice cream scooper that scoops 1.5 tablespoons of dough, which I measured out to be 27 grams, or just under 1 ounce per cookie. Once you've scooped out all your cookies, add a few pieces of chocolate to each one and then place them in the fridge. When you're ready to bake, which should be the next day, preheat the oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the cookies on a parchment-lined baking sheet and bake for about 8 to 11 minutes. You can also sprinkle them with flaky sea salt before baking if you'd like. Let the cookies rest for 5 to 10 minutes before enjoying them, as they will likely be super soft and not very sturdy when they first come out of the oven. And once the portioned out balls of raw cookie dough have hardened in the fridge overnight, you can add them to an airtight container and store them in the freezer. I am really not kidding when I say I tested these cookies probably a dozen times a dozen different ways until I finally found the cookie that works, especially with gluten-free flour. So let's give it a taste. These cookies are really so amazing. I really hope that you get the chance to try them. I only make them a couple of times a year, only around this time of year in the fall and winter months. So it's always such a treat when I put aside the time to bake these cookies, and I really hope you enjoy them. It's so good. I will, of course, link to all of my favorite chocolate chip cookie recipes, the gluten-free ones and the regular ones, because I have many that I love. They'll all be linked in the description box below. Thanks as always for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.